I love to see the towns passing by and to ride these rails neath God's blue sky. Let me travel this land from the mountains to the sea, 'cause that's the life I believe He meant for me. And when I'm gone and at my grave you stand, say God called home your rambling man.
Welcome to Ramblin' Man Podcast episode number 91. This one's with Stacy Palado. And Stacy, I hope I pronounced your last name correctly. I'm so sorry. I should have reviewed that before I went live on this. But Stacy was a great guest. It was great to talk to her. Mainly, we focused on like her roles in art museums, and we talked a bit about the local museum here, the McClung Museum, and an event they have coming up. If you'd like more information about the McClung Museum, you can find them online at mcclungmuseum.utk.edu. That's MCCLUNG museum.utk.edu. If you'd like information from Stacy directly, you can email her at spalado@utk.edu and talk to her about membership or sign up for the e-newsletter or to learn how to sign up for the special exhibition we talked about on women's work. Or you can find her art online at stacyannart.com, STACYANNART.com. It's a pleasure having Stacy on. She was great and chipper, which is wonderful to combat my goofy stubbornness at times. But I appreciate her for being on. Sponsor this week is Feral Giant. Feral Giant is a graphic design, illustration, and social media consultation company based here in Knoxville, Tennessee. So they do work for clients big and small all over the country, all over the globe, in fact. But they also do photography, videography, video editing, and audio editing, website design, SEO, writing, content development. Hell, they'll babysit your kids if it nets them money. So make sure you give them a follow on social media on either Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, or LinkedIn at @FeralGiant. And be sure to give them an email today and hire them for your next project. Without much further ado, here's the episode. My friend Hannah Minocchio, who is in Cleveland, Ohio, she is a joke. She is not Italian. She's 100% Italian. Like all of her family is from Italy. And that's so cool. Whenever she talks to me, I was like, do you know how hard it is? Because when you start talking about sauce, especially with that Cleveland accent, it's hard for me to like do that.
We call it the gravy in the Northeast.
Oh my God.
Sunday gravy.
I've already been corrected. Oh my God.
And actually, I am making some right now.
Of course.
I had some in the freezer. One of the perks of working from home is you can get dinner started early.
Freezer. Yeah, that's another thing. She's like, do you know how much sauce I have in the freezer? Or I don't think she calls it gravy, but maybe she knows I'm from the South. And then if she said gravy to me, I was like, why would you have gravy in the freezer? That sounds disgusting. Like,
yeah, she probably is
self-correcting.
She's code switching.
So here's my question. How long have you been in Knoxville?
Well, actually, we have been here. My husband and I moved here quite some time ago. I think it's been so long, I can't remember. About 14 years.
Oh, okay. So here's why I say that. And I told her, I was like, I'm going to take you here whenever you visit, but you cannot talk trash about this place because I love it. And I grew up on it. And that's why I'm as big as I am. Have you ever been to Louie's in North Knoxville?
Yes. In fact, I'm going to call her out. One of my former bosses Susie Gardner Booker, who is the VP for advancement at Maryville College. She and is a dear friend of mine. Took our team there.
Yeah.
Was like, you gotta get here. My family would always take me there. And I don't think I've ever told her this. So I'm like confessing on air.
Be careful.
I'm confessing on air, but I was like, that is not Italian.
No. Do you not know the story? It's no.
A story about
about Louis. And sorry,
well,
sometimes
I know that it had a drive, you go through the drive-through, and I don't know.
Curbside, yeah.
So I thought that's kind of fun, but I wouldn't want to eat spaghetti in the back of my pickup truck, but maybe that's part of the fun. I don't know.
And sometimes the only reason I say it, sometimes my mic overpowers. So sometimes I can't hear you. No, the guy who started that is a Greek man. It's an Italian food made by a Greek man. I love that sauce. I know it's not authentic. I don't care that it's not authentic. It's spicy and it's meaty and it's greasy. I absolutely love it. But a friend of mine from New York, he went there and he started yelling at me. I was like, you shut your mouth. I will punch you. Like, I love that place. So that's a no from you. That's a no.
Well, they use like my family's from New York, so
yeah. Oh my God. It's different. If you don't think about it as spaghetti sauce, it's just some kind of sauce that they have. I don't know. I'm trying to justify. I grew up on it. I can't. It's one of those things that it taught me that if you grow up on something, nobody else can understand it, but it can be the best thing in the world to you. Like, here, I'll confess something. There's a place over here, Rankin Restaurant, that everybody swears by. I finally went. I had never gone. I finally went like 10 years ago, and I was like, "This is terrible. What in the hell is everyone talking about?" Because it was like, "This is the best biscuits and gravy in town." I was like, "I think these were microwaved." They were microwaved.
I've heard of the place, but I haven't been there. But I will say, biscuits and gravy, we've adopted that. My kids are like, full on Southern, so they had to learn how to make biscuits and gravy for them.
So I had a friend come in from Colorado, and she was like, "I want biscuits and gravy," and I was like, "Okay. Do you want the best in town, or do you want the hipster good ones? Because it depends." And for my money, the best in town is Holly's Gourmet Market in Bearden. Is that it? You love Holly's? Okay. But the hipster one is Ollie Bay, which Jeffrey, those are amazing. But there's something about what Holly does to where there's really peppered. And I always get extra side of sausage and chop that up and put it in there. I'm trying to get her to convince her to call that the Jody or something. Just because I get it every time I go. And some of the wait staff are like, "You want your usual?" I was like, yeah, give me that. I'll take that.
Maybe it could just be like a level of sausageness that you have. I'll have a Jody level. I'll have the
Oh my God. I will tell Holly, I will tell Holly that. You got to bump up your sausage level. So what is it? Sausage level for the Jody. Yeah.
Yeah. Say bring it up to the Jody level. You can tell Holly that I said that.
That's amazing. Oh God. I love Holly. I love her to death. She, it's so funny. Like, I've known Peggy forever, her sister. I assume, Peggy, and I did not really know Holly. And then all of a sudden one day she decided we were friends and came up and hugged me. I was like, "God love you." And ever since then, it's just been amazing. It just cracked me up. I was like, I don't think I'd ever met you. And all of a sudden it's like, you're hugging me. I love it.
I love that.
She's the best. She's the best. Her and her staff are hilarious. They crack me up.
They're
okay.
great.
So you've been here for 14, y'all have been here for 14 years. So what brought y'all here?
So we lived in Los Angeles and I worked in museums there. And that's actually how my husband and I met. We weren't married then. And we moved here because it's well, you said I could curse, right?
Yes.
It's expensive in LA.
Yeah.
We moved here and I actually have family who had relocated after my parents retired. They decided to move to East Tennessee. And so we could stay with them. And even though we both started out in the museum field, my husband actually started working for an insurance agency that's based in LA, and was doing some like auditing, and I think he was selling them, but he is bilingual in Spanish. And so they didn't have that many bilingual licensed agents when they opened a new office that they built here in the Knoxville area. So they were trying to get people to move out here. And so he knew he would have a job, and we would have a place to stay.
Right.
And yeah, so it's been great. It was nice to be back on the East Coast too, because I am originally from the East Coast. So
Okay. It amazed. I found out a fact a couple years ago that I don't know if it's in the country or in the South or what it is, but one of the biggest Latinx, I hate to say, I don't know what I just had this conversation on another podcast. I was like, I don't know what to say. What is correct? I want to be correct.
That's funny because I think it's a generational thing. So the most feminist correct thing is Latinx, but I am in my 40s. My husband is in his 50s, and we kind of don't like the Latinx thing because it's not a real word.
It feels funny.
It feels awkward.
What's funny is the person I talked to, I called it like Latinx or something like that. And she's like, no, it's Latinx. I was like, shit. I was like, I'm trying, man. I'm trying. The point is, the biggest Catholic church in the region, in the country or whatever, is in like Monroe County, and it down there, like, and I was like, what? And they're like, yeah, it's people who've come here to work, and they started this Catholic church, and it is just absolutely massive. It's a friend of mine who's Catholic that works with Catholic Charities and stuff up here, that she was kind of mind blown, because she I don't know. She is honky white. She is whiter than white. She is almost transparent. She is so white.
No, okay. Monroe County encompasses which towns again? I know that
Madisonville, I think Sweetwater, like down in that area, about an hour south of Knoxville.
Okay. Because there's also a very large Latinx, or whatever you call it, population in Morristown too. I know.
Didn't know that because I was on a committee for the city called this Business Advisory Council, and one of the guys on the council ran a job placement company up there that was really interesting, and he was from Mexico and came here, and I think that was his selling point, was most of the people he placed were people who had came here from Mexico. I'm trying to do good, and I'm not a brain dead dumbass redneck. So like, I don't know. I'm just trying to do good.
That's right. They did come here for, and it is a big place. It is a big like settlement area for Mexicans that are immigrating in Morristown. In fact, we were talking to people there, and that was one of the first things before I had a job. I was a substitute teacher for an Episcopal school, and they do a lot, and they had, a lot of people who had immigrated, and then also they do a lot of bilingual teaching there, which is great. And so that's actually something that we started doing at the museum, is we do a lot of bilingual stuff at McClung Museum.
Okay.
Our educator is fluent in Spanish too.
So you all, before he started working in insurance, you were both in the museum industry in LA?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Which museum did y'all work for?
We were both in visitor services at the Getty Museum,
Okay.
The new Getty. That's like up on the 405.
Is that the one up on the side of the mountain that looks like it's going to fall? Or hasn't there been foundation issues and stuff?
So there's an old one that was actually, I have friends who work there. So the Getty Villa is the original one that the Getty family established in the 70s. And that was under construction for many, many years. And when I first moved there, it was under construction, and it only reopened a little bit before we moved here.
Okay.
Public. But so then they built a newer one that was can't remember the name of I want to say is Gehry, I think it's Frank Gehry, was the
Oh,
architect.
yeah.
Much more, modern looking, and it's all white travertine and everything. And we were visitor services like greeter, and they always want people who speak different languages and stuff. But yeah, and we all had a dress in white shirts and then khaki, some kind of pants, and it was which is the color of the stone. So I felt like they just which is weird because you would think that if people are greeting you, you'd want to find them, but I felt like they wanted us to blend into the background. So I don't know. Maybe something for them to think about in the future.
Here on out. Yeah. Yeah. At the McClung, it's like nobody wear orange because you're just going to blend in with every other UT fan who walks through here. Yeah. Okay. There was one of them. I thought it was the Getty that was like on the side of a mountain that the rock or the foundation or something was cracking underneath. And they're like, that is going to go one of these days. Maybe it was, hell, I don't know. I know LACMA. I've been to LA.
So I worked there most recently. I worked before moving in education.
Okay. LACMA. Were you there when they did the Kubrick exhibit?
Sure. I don't think I was working there then. I don't remember what year.
I think that may have been more recent. I think that may have been in the last 10 years. That was one where I almost went to LA just to go to that Kubrick exhibit because I'm a big movie nerd. Like, it was so cool. Like, that's every time I go to another city, I find a museum and go to it if I can. So when what
type of art do you like?
That's hard to, so I catch shit from my artist friends and there's been a few of, so during, oh God, you've listened to a few episodes, so you're going to understand. I'm going to take a long way around to get to my point. So during the pandemic, there's been a small group of like 6 of us that we meet every Wednesday. And we call it prayer circle, air quotes. When I say prayer circle, we sit around and it's 6 guys and we drink bourbon and we smoke. 2 of us or 3 of us smoke cigars. And man, they are all like masters in fine arts, all that stuff, all those guys. I'm son of a truck driver and phone company worker, like have been doing art since I was in like middle school, but not proficient at hand drawn out. I'm good at computer art, but not hand drawn. So my 3 favorite artists, and I caught shit for that: Norman Rockwell, MC Escher, and Piet Mondrian. And we talked about Rockwell one night at my house at one of those meetups, and one of the guys was just like, ugh. And I was like, shut up. I'm sorry I'm not cool, that I don't take a piece of paper and wad it up and go, here's my art. Like, you dickhead. Like, I just start going off on him and one of the guys and I got into it wasn't heated, but it got a little animated because I was in Philly at the art museum, at the Rocky Museum, which I love pointing that out. And we were in there, and one of my friend Michelle, I'll make fun of her openly, Michelle Doherty, we passed those like lush landscapes from like the 1500s, beautifully painted, all that. And she's like, ugh, those are couch paintings. Those suck. And I was like, do you know how technically proficient you had to be to do that? That's amazing. And that thing's like 8 foot by 6 foot. That's a glorious piece. She's like, it's boring. It's something that'd be above my grandmother's couch. And then we turned a corner and walked in a room, and it was all Cy Twombly. And she was like, see, this is amazing. I was like, I'm going to punch you in the face because 3-year-olds do better art than this. Fuck this guy. I just start loudly going off, and I'm 6'7". So I was just going nuts. I was like, fuck this guy. He fucking just going off. And I was like, what is wrong with you? Let's just let people like what they like. I like Norman Rockwell and MC Escher because I think technically they are amazing artists. Like, and I actually drove on that trip, drove to DC because the 2 biggest private collection owners of Rockwell's are Steven Spielberg and George Lucas, and they lent all of their collection to the Smithsonian in DC, and I went to see it, and it was all the Rockwells. I was like, I love this guy. Like, I know him and MC Escher in white girl terms is basic. I don't care.
I don't think there's there's a reason that they are well known and beloved.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything wrong. I don't think there's anything wrong.
And I only have, I think, two older paintings, prints of older paintings hanging up in my house. I have a bunch of modern stuff. Like, I don't know if you can see, like this girl with the hair, that was done by a high school kid.
Aww.
Here in town. All these weird shapes, that was done by a 4-year-old. And like this piece hanging up was a high school kid. I was president of AIGA, and we did this program called Budding Creativity, where we raise money for a local art program. Mm-hmm. Like at Norwood Elementary, one year we raised money for them. And then this is Great Smoky Mountains piece by a designer artist guy. But the only two pieces I have up are Christina's World, which is my favorite piece. And I got to see it live at MoMA. That's another one that Michelle made fun of me for. She was like, that painting's so depressing. I was like, okay, Michelle, shut up. Just stop talking. I take it back. I have 3. And I have Cabalette's Paris Street Rainy Day, which I love. And then the other piece, I cannot tell you because it's a woman in a field holding a thresher. And I like it. I saw it in a book, and then I'm not kidding, like a week later on YouTube, I saw, and here's how you can find out what that was. Bill Murray, somebody was interviewing Bill Murray, and whatever that piece was, he was thinking about committing suicide, walked into a museum, saw that piece, and changed his mind. And I had just seen that piece a week before. I was like, that tells me I need to buy a print of that piece. So I bought a print of that piece and hung it up. The Cabalette, the Paris Street Rainy Day, I saw that in Chicago, and that thing is like 20 by 15. It is massive, and it's like this big in my bathroom. It's like 8 by 6 in my bathroom. I love it. That was another one I just saw somewhere. I was like, I can't explain why I like that piece, but I like that piece.
Yeah, well, it speaks to your emotions, and that's what art's supposed to do.
But a lot of them, like, I'm sorry, I'm going to pre-apologize. Like Rothko, I don't get it. It's lost on me. And I get fussed at by my buddies or any of my art. I was like, how about it just doesn't? Pant Modrian speaks to me, and that's the weirdest, most anti-Rockwell, anti-Escher, like grids and squares. Like that's not something. I don't know. I don't know how to. I get frustrated.
Like most of the stuff that we have around here. Okay. I feel like I should move my computer and show you things.
Oh my God, we go on the road, air quotes. I just carry you through.
Yeah, because I have like some, I mostly like to do portraits personally. So they're, and I would call them what I call them psychological portraits, or kind of like I don't even know what that means, but I think that when I have my graduation show, that was what I kind of termed them, because I feel like you have to have some kind of like a relationship with the person that you're painting, even if it's a brief one that you start in the pre-conversation before you paint them, or even if you're doing it from a photo or something like that, because it makes the image more powerful. And now that we do have photography and ways to do digital art, it needs to be more than just representational. And I do like to do representational in a way. It's not like blocks of swaths of color or whatever, but you want it to also be able to evoke an emotion. And some, of course, a good photographer can do that too. But, if you're amping up the color, or like one of the things that my husband and I were kind of testing out some was playing with encaustic, where you add wax because I used to a lot of the time try to build up paint like on panels, like paint on wood panels, because you build up the texture more. So something that you can't do with a photograph is you can't do that texture, and unless you're using digital, you can't get the range of colors necessarily unless you're going in and retouching. So that I think there's other subtle ways that you can differentiate the art, even if it is representational.
I took a note to remember to come back to the encaustic thing. When I saw Christina's World at MoMA, it was in this tiny room and I did not know it was there. And I just turned the corner, walked in the room, and it was right in front of me. And I'm not kidding. I looked around and I said, I need y'all to leave. I literally cleared the room. I was like, I'm going to need a minute, guys. And I just stood there for like 10 minutes. I was like, trying not to cry. Like I was trying not to cry. And I kept going up and looking at it because I'd heard, I'm trying to remember who it was. It was somebody, was it Pollock? It was somebody big that was talking about that piece. And he was like, that piece is not a painting. That's almost a sculpture. Because if you look at it, how he built that paint up, the actual grain and stuff, you can go up and look and it's like mountain ridges. Like it's so built up. And that blew my mind. Like not thinking about it from that, thinking of it as a 3D piece, not a 2D piece that's up on the wall. Yes, I did clear a room. I also, here's how you can make fun of me. I made a security woman at that museum laugh so hard she almost fell down. Because I turned a corner and I looked at a piece and apparently made a face. And this was like a 60-year-old black woman came up to me. I saw her like almost fall over. And then she walked up to me giggling, put her arm on my shoulder. And was like, honey, that face you made, I've never seen anything like that in here. And I've been working here forever. I was like, ma'am, I have been doing art since I was in 7th grade. I don't know what the shit that is. And I pointed at it and I was like, because it was like a blank canvas where somebody had painted black around the edges and put like a red dot in the middle. And that was it. And I was like, you've got to be fucking, I was so angry. But she said, that face you made. She was like, I've never seen a face like that in here. I was like, thank you.
So did she tell you what she thought of the piece? Because I felt that, okay, I'm just curious because our security guard at the museum, and then also when I worked in visitor services, especially at the Getty, the people who are looking at the art more than anyone are the security guards. Yeah. So they usually have a lot of knowledge and a lot of opinions, and I like to try to engage them in sharing those if they will.
I'm trying to think if I should say what I'm thinking right now. I have talked to a lot of security people at museums, and it's always fascinating to me because it's never people who are artists. It's people just, blue collar people who want a job. And there's part of me that would love to just do an interview series interviewing museum security people.
Well, did you see when the Cowboy Museum did their social media takeover during COVID with Tim? That was the best thing of the pandemic, in my opinion.
I forgot that was during COVID. That's how long COVID has been. I was like, oh my God, that's right. That was in the Tiger King era of COVID.
Right. Our security officers actually got his master's degree in history from the University of Tennessee. And so he knows like a lot about the museum. Okay. So I have a very bad confession to make. But I'm going to blame this on being from here. I have not been to the McClung since like middle school or high school. And it's because of parking. I hate. Oh, I know.
Okay. Thank you. I'm friends with the women's tennis coach, Allison.
Okay.
And she invited me to a tennis match and I went and I almost told her, like, there's a 50-50 chance I may not come because of parking. You're lucky you're having me come on a Saturday because I grew up here and I know what a nightmare it is. How stupid it is to park over there. Like,
well, let me tell you one secret.
Okay.
And all of your listeners.
Or do I need to cut this out? Yeah.
You don't have to cut it out.
I'm going to bleep this.
Unless the director of parking contacts me later. But we have been told, and we do tell our guests, if they are coming to the museum to visit, they can ask for a 2-hour parking pass from the kiosk for free instead of a 45-minute one that you'll automatically get if you have a meeting or something.
Yeah.
So if you say, I'm going to the museum, I'm going to stay, I would like to stay more than 45 minutes. I need a 2-hour pass. Then they should give you this. And you can stay for 2 hours in the circle.
So the last on the circle, I was over there a couple years ago. I did the coffee cup for WUOT for their fundraising drive. Mm-hmm. The one that do you get those or I don't know how connected. It was the one that was blue and white and had like a skyline of Knoxville. That was me.
Oh yeah. Really? Well, I submitted one, but I didn't get it. But then they used it later for a calendar.
So that's what somebody else I know. She didn't win it that year, but they used hers in something else. Same thing. It was like, this one's too good. Let's use this for something else because we can't just.
Oh, I like how you said that all nice. It's too good.
Oh, well, it was. But I went over there to be interviewed by Todd Steed. Do you know Todd Steed?
I've met him. Oh
my God.
Yeah, he's a nice guy.
He's an idiot. I love him. He's the best. He's been on the podcast twice. Once to talk about baseball.
Oh.
And then I just had him and his band Smokin' Dave and the Primo Dopes on because they just released a new album. And That was wild. But I went over there to be interviewed. So here's a little funny Knoxville history. So I'm being interviewed. I put the earbuds in and it's so loud that I'm talking like this because talking like that sounds like I'm screaming into the mic. And I told him after the interview, I should have asked him, I was like, dude, can I turn this down? And it turned out that Con Hunley was in there before me and he is deaf. So he had cranked it up all. I was like, son of a bitch. I was like, so I could hear myself breathing into the mic. I should have said, Todd, what the hell is up with the, it's like, oh God. Okay. Okay, Todd.
So later in your interview, did you sound like very breathy throughout the whole thing?
I did. I kept trying to not breathe. Like early on, it was like, oh. And then later on, I was like off mic breathing. I was like, man, this is terrible. But I had to park on Circle Park and it was the same thing. I actually made a round and I was like, oh shit, I think I was supposed to get a thing there. And I stopped and the guy gave me the thing. But same thing, it was like 45 minutes. He's taking me down in the dungeon of WUOT. I was like, dude, I got like 12 more minutes, man. We got to go, man. I ain't getting a ticket. If I get a ticket, I'm going to start punching somebody, man.
Well, you can use my trick,
Okay.
But you'll have to pop in the museum so you're not a liar.
And I think my dad, he's been up there in the last 5 years. His dad, my grandfather, grew up in Bearden when it was still farm country. Mm-hmm. And he was a caddy at Cherokee Country Club. And I can never, Gene Saracen. There were all these, the PGA Tour came through Knoxville when he was, my grandfather was a kid. Sam Snead and Gene Saracen, and my grandfather was a caddy for Sam Snead, I think. And he was on the front of the New Sentinel paper. And Dad has been hunting for that picture forever and can't find it. Can't find a good copy. All the copies, everybody is kind of blacked out. But the funniest thing is there's one where you can see people standing. And he was like, which one's your papa? I was like, oh, it's that one right there. I can tell by the way he's standing. I don't care if he's 15 years old. He stood the exact same way at 15 that he did when he was 80. I was like, oh yeah, that's papa. He's like, yep, that was papa.
That's cool.
But yeah, he went there to get that. But I haven't been, here's my oath. I will go. Within this year, I will go. We're in COVID time, so I'm still a little like.
I know.
So that'll be
I will tell you the parking is fabulous right now.
Oh, is it? Oh my God. Well, it'll be even better in 3 weeks when school's out?
Well, because they've been doing classes like I think only 25% fully on campus, another 25% hybrid, and then like 50%.
Right.
So at any given time, you don't have more than like a third of the cars parking. So there's been less, parking's not going to be great come fall when everything
Oh yeah.
The one thing I will miss is the parking.
Okay, let's go back to, so LA, you worked at the Getty, you worked at LACMA. Like, have you always been an artist, like from when you were little?
So my dad actually is he's a frustrated musician or something. Well, he's always, so he writes music and sings and all that, and was always in bands and things. So we always had a lot of appreciation for the arts. And then he had a relative in Italy who was like a famous opera singer and all this. And then he actually is a pretty good artist as far as like sketching himself too. And so I think I always liked to draw. And I remember in first grade, I won a contest for our region for drawing Santa Claus, and I was in the newspaper. And then I did like a contest and won in seventh grade. I did a regional thing where I won for making this mola, which is like a layered paper project. And then I was kind of like a nerd in high school, so I went. This is part of the junior classical league, which I didn't realize at the time because I wasn't really from the scene that does junior league. My family wasn't of that set, that it was a riff off the junior league. So it was basically for people who studied Latin, and we were in a Latin competition, which is where it was like a battle of the brains for Latin. So that tells you just how nerdy, except we really sucked, and we would have, we would lose all the time, or we would come in second to last.
Oh my God.
Had a little song, and we'd be like, we're not the worst. We're not, I don't know. It was funny. But anyway, so I did a project for that, like an art project. I went 2 art projects for that in high school too. And so then I had decided I was because my dad wanted to study music, I think, and was pretty much told he couldn't. And he had to pay for his own school too. And so I wanted to study. He was like, do whatever you want to do, So I went away to William and Mary, and I studied art and art history, and then worked in a frame shop in Fredericksburg for about a year as a custom framer.
Oh yeah.
Art and frame designs. I still know the owner, Cheryl Bosch. They're awesome.
You cut out. Give them a shout out one more time. Hold on.
Okay. It's called Art and Frame Designs. Cheryl Bosch is the owner, and they do framing for the University of Mary Washington. They're really great. They just opened a second shop. They're really great. Her and her mom were the owners, and they've expanded. And so they're awesome. And then I decided to move cross country with some friends who wanted to be in the theater industry and still live out there. And let's see, we bought we bought an old an old carpet cleaning van or something. And I had a tow hitch installed on it, and we towed my car, and we put all of our stuff there. I had an art show at that frame store and made enough money to be able to do this move. And basically we moved all our stuff out there, worked in a bunch of museums. I also actually had an unpaid internship for my friend's cousin in like a fashion design place. I won't give them a shout out because I don't really know all the details. It did have a slightly I can't think of the word, but a sweatshop vibe to it.
Oh, good Lord. Okay.
I was like cutting patterns in an unair conditioned.
Yeah. Do more.
Yeah. So then,
what was your degree in? What did you end up majoring in?
Studio art. I majored in studio art. Yeah. Okay. And so I had a, final show and everything. I'm actually going back to school now to get an MBA though. So art, if you want to make money, go back. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh my God. I still contend. So my degree is in graphic design, and I contend that anybody getting into any of the arts should have to take business classes, because so many of us work for ourselves, and that you need to learn shit. Like, you need to learn how to sell. You need to learn how to do marketing. You need to know how to do all that stuff, because we're our own marketing firm. Everybody is.
Yeah. It's been very interesting and very great. And believe it or not, I actually really enjoy math. And so I always said that art and math are related. And I would, take pictures of gridding things out for a painting or an image. I mean, and my husband is like you, self-taught artist, but he is building a ton of things and always making things. He actually taught me how to make jewelry and do mosaics and stuff. So you use math in anything that you make. So
I will say, when I was in school, we had to take one final elective that was either math or English. And the director of the department, we were meeting, and he was like, "You're the first student I've had since he started the program like 10 years before." He's like, "You're the first student to ever take a math elective instead of English." And I was like, "Yeah, the math class I took." So when I was going to school, I went to school from 96 to 99. I took advanced classes in promotion, PR, marketing, and I took a math class called Advanced Probability and Statistics. And my thought was, I'm doing design. I need to learn how to do testing to prove what I'm doing is correct. And I was like, oh, I look at that now, 26 years later, and go, that's the entirety of marketing now. It's all SEO, numbers, analytics, and data. And so that's the class I took. And I keep meaning to message him and say, "Hey, remember when I took that class and you made fun of me for not taking English?" That's the world we live in now, man. Mm-hmm. It was, because English was weird. Like, you've heard me talk. I can't talk in good English. Like, I barely, I mumble. Because I read a guy that was not a trained writer, whatever the hell you want to call it. And he was like, "I changed tenses 3 times in this paragraph. Guess what? That's how I speak. So that's how I write. Who cares? Who's coming at me with a red pen?" He was like, I've published and sold 1 million books. Shut up. Like, this is not everything has to be word perfect. Like, not everything. And I could never get English teachers to understand that. And I was like, I write how I talk, and I can't do better than that. Sorry. If I end on a preposition, sorry. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah. I mean, the way that somebody speaks isn't the way that they write. So that makes total sense.
Mm-hmm. But okay, so undergrad, you got the van, you hitched up your car, you're moving to the West Coast. Did you move to LA? Mm-hmm. What was the impetus to move to LA? I
was young, and why not? I had an unpaid internship and 2 friends there.
Yeah, the unpaid is is that the point where your dad was like, "Wait, I know I told you to do anything, but hold up. Unpaid?" Oh my God. Okay.
It didn't take me very long to get a job. In fact, at one point I had 3 jobs before I got a full-time job.
Oh yeah, of course. That's how it goes. And I would say, if you've been here 14 years, so you got to see downtown when it was still undeveloped. I know I'm a big comedy nerd, so almost the only thing I listen to is comedy podcasts, and they're all in LA. So I know way the hell more about LA than I should ever know. And I only went there once. I was working for PetSafe. We had a photo shoot in Orange County, and I stayed an extra 4 days and toured around LA, Hollywood.
Where did you go?
I got made fun of for walking because I couldn't figure out again, recurring thing, parking. I hate parking. And I was going to Amoeba Records, and I could not find parking. So I ended up parking in a garage like a mile away. And I walked past a bar that all these dudes were hanging out at like 3:00 on a Wednesday. And they yelled at me and made fun of me. And I went to Amoeba, and then I walked back, and they yelled at me and made fun at me again. And I almost crossed the street and went, "What the hell y'all talking about over here? Y'all making fun of me?" hey, I have legs. I can walk you. And just start going. I was like, what are you drunk idiot? Shut up. I don't understand. Your city is screwed up. There's not enough parking, man.
And it's all a big scam because I actually had my one time I parked and it was after hours in a place that was a meter that had been pulled out, but it was after hours, so the meter wasn't. It was over near LACMA, like a couple, and so it shouldn't have mattered because it was after hours. Well, I got a freaking ticket from one of those things where they send you in. They like take a pic. I don't know. And I actually took pictures and sent it in. And I was like, but this is a broken meter. And it was after hours.
Yeah.
And in order to contest a ticket in LA, you actually have to pay it first. Is that not?
Sorry, I hit my head on the mic. That's a first. Hey, that's a first on this. I'm so dumbfounded.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
So that's when I knew it was a scam. And I was like, well, I guess I'm screwed.
Oh, God. So I went all around. I'm a big comic book nerd, too. So I went to a bunch of the comic book shops that sadly, I think a lot of them have closed since then. This has been 8-9 years ago. So and some of these places were places that I think started maybe after you already got Meltdown Comic. I don't know if you're a comic book person, but Meltdown Comics was one of the best comic book shops. There were two other big ones, Golden Apple and another one. And both of those, it wasn't Golden Apple. It was the other one, whatever the other one was. That the guy who worked in there was such a douche to me that I almost just pushed the comics back over to him. It's like, you know what? You don't need my money. Apparently I'm going to go. But the people and I think Meltdown is closed because they were doing comedy out of the back of Meltdown for a long time. And, but I think it is closed. What was that place? There was some kind of horror themed comic book shop that I went to. And I've got some friends who work in the comic industry that all lived around LA. And I got to buy a friend of mine's, the hardback of his book in that. It was called like House of Secrets or something like that. It's really cool. And I got to buy his comic book signed by him in that comic. I was like, this is amazing. I was like, why didn't I tell him I would be here so he could come visit? Like, I'm an idiot. But yeah, I told around. I tell you, everybody complains about driving on the interstate out there. I had no problems, but I drive like a maniac anyway, so I didn't have any problems.
Well, I didn't mind the interstate, but where I had to commute was the 101, 405 exchange because when I first, this is actually pretty funny. When I first moved there, we had I had a friend already out there that I was staying with, and we then got their apartment later. But so she was in the Burbank area, and I, got a job at the Getty, which is 15 miles. And if you're in Virginia, which is where I moved from, 15 miles is, like same as here, 15 minutes, 20 minutes. Well, there it's an hour and a half.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
I didn't know that. I was an idiot, but
no,
I found that out later.
It doesn't make sense. Like when I stayed out there, I was staying out in Burbank and I saw an exit and then in like Echo Park. God, I don't know if you've ever seen the SNL sketch, The Californians, but this has turned into The Californians where they're like, I just went up the 101 and turned on the 5. And I'm saying that wrong probably, but I saw this exit in Echo Park that the road that I needed to be on in Burbank was there. I was like, oh, cool. I'll just take surface roads. Screw the interstate. And so I got off there and I'm not kidding. I went a quarter of a mile and that road ended. And I was like, what the shit? And so I had to figure out my way. This is pre-GPS. I had to figure out my way back to the interstate. And I kept driving like 20 more miles and found that road. And then I talked to the guy at the hotel, Holiday Inn. And what was it he said? He was like, oh, yeah, that red road goes away for like 5 miles. And I was like, what are you talking about? And he was like, yeah, it just ended right there. And then it'll pick back up later. I was like, what is wrong with you? So what you're telling me is Main Avenue stops in the middle for 5 miles and then picks back up. what is wrong with you? Like, it was so stupid. And then I talked to a friend of mine who's from out there, born and raised. He's like, oh yeah, that totally makes sense. I know exactly where you're talking about. And I was like, y'all suck. What's wrong with you?
Yeah, I don't really enjoy driving that much anyway. So,
Oh.
but I definitely had to and do it all the time.
So you move out to LA. Did you live the life? Like, did you go to a bunch of like concerts, and like, what were you into did you get into anything?
Well, I had some art shows out there and stuff at some restaurants, and nothing like huge. And then I, worked at museums, and I had friends who were like in the acting industry or whatever. So we would go to but they were just trying to break in. Right. So like really, crappy plays and openings. But I did, you still get to rub up against celebrities and stuff. And especially working at the Getty, and at LACMA, a ton of actors and celebrities come in for visits. And I mean, I remember giving directions to Drew Barrymore, like how to go to something, and then at the museum, and then Tom Hanks, who's down to earth, almost hit me with his car, and I kept thinking, why didn't I let him hit me with his car? That one, I would have been set for life.
Oh my God.
What's her name? Who played Dr. Quinn Medicine Woman? And
Jane Seymour.
Yeah, she drove through one day, but I thought it was great that Hanks was driving his own car, because usually the celebs would have, a driver coming up or whatever. And then we did see Madonna there one day, but I didn't get to talk to her.
You're probably good. She probably put on the fake British accent and
I made a reservation for a group at LACMA for Rob Reiner once. I remember that. Kind of cool. Like they had to have they wanted a special tour. So
it's funny. The ones I'm getting excited for, I'm like, Drew Barrymore, whatever. Jane Seymour, that's pretty cool. Rob Reiner, that's amazing. Like, dude, you did you went on a run in the 80s that is unfathomable. Like his movies in the 80s.
Yeah. So I did get to sing with Juliette Lewis. I did get to sing karaoke with her at somebody's birthday party. That was fun because I love karaoke. So I go do karaoke all the time.
I thought you were going to say, because I love Juliette Lewis.
No, just the karaoke.
She seems like a hoot, though. She seems like
she was hilarious. Yeah, she was very funny. I could see how she would be like fun to party with.
I had a friend that worked at Scripps Networks, now Discovery, and he had to go out to LA for something. And he's from the South, like he's from like Arkansas and Florida, and moved here. And he's going into a restaurant, and some people are coming out, and he holds the door open, and he looks up, and he's like, "That's Joe Perry." And behind Joe Perry, he's like, "That's Steven Tyler." And they both like, "Thanks, man," like that. And he was like, "What the fuck just happened?" Like he freaked out. He was just like, "What just happened? I just opened the door for Aerosmith. What happened?" Like, I don't understand. Awesome. So, I think the biggest celebrity I've ever met, I may actually trump. No, Hanks is. The biggest celebrity I've ever met was Tom Cruise.
Okay. Uh-huh.
And that was here at a movie premiere. He came to Knoxville, and he is shorter than everybody thinks. Like, I was standing like 3 people back, and I don't say this to humble brag, but there was some dude like trying to muscle his way in there to get something autographed. And the dude was pushing a little girl out of the way. And I just reached up and grabbed the dude by the arm and pushed him over so that the little girl could get back up there. And he kind of looked at me like angry, and then he looked up and he was not angry anymore. And I did that right as Tom Cruise was walking up, and he looked at the little girl, he looked up at me and did like the head nod. And I was like, hell yeah, Tom Cruise. That's fucking awesome. I was so excited. But there's 2 guys. You talk about weird. There are 2, and they're both LA based, that both of them, I've already practiced my line. If I ever meet either one of them, I'm just going to walk up and say, "Hi. So I'm a big fan. I'm going to hug you, and I'm going to cry." And that's what's going to happen. Magic Johnson, because I've loved him since I was a little kid, and Kevin Smith. I think both of them, I would just be like, I'm sorry. I'm going to need to hug you and I'm going to need to cry. So
Aw.
I'm sorry. With Magic Johnson, he's like just a little bit taller than me. So that would be hilarious. Just all right, man. Just let it happen. And I think they're both super nice human beings. Kevin Smith's short, so that might be kind of like, hey man, just get in here, big little man. Just get in here.
Well, I did see Kareem Abdul-Jabbar come through the Getty, and he was really skinny, but he was so tall, and they have a huge dome entry, and it was really weird to see him with his teeny little bodyguards next to him. It looked so strange.
Yeah, he's 7 foot tall. Like he's another one. Like I would love to meet him, but that's hilarious. Did you ever have an encounter with a celebrity that later on you realized that it was a celebrity and you didn't know when you first met him?
I don't think so, because I don't think so. I think at first when Drew Barrymore came up to me, because she looked different. I don't know if she just got out of rehab that time or what. She was super skinny. I didn't realize it was her at first.
This is back in the era of her flashing Letterman on the Letterman show.
Maybe, because this is, we're talking like 20 years ago or something.
Oh my God.
And it was funny because she asked me how to get somewhere, and I pulled out a map and I was showing her like, this is the building where you are and you want to go to this building. And when she started talking, because you have a lot of people and you're not looking up. And it wasn't until I really looked at her and she started talking, I was like, oh my gosh, it's Drew Barrymore, because of her voice and everything. Oh. And she said, no, just point. I'm not that good with maps.
Oh my God. That's amazing. But that's on brand for her. That totally makes sense for her. Yeah. Oh my God. Okay. So you're out there, you're doing art shows, you're going to weird plays. Are you into comedy or any, like, cause I always think of like Groundlings, all UCB, all those are based out there. So like around that time, it would have been like Will Ferrell and Amy Poehler were all out there.
I never got to see any good. I did. Now I'm not good at remembering people, some celeb names, which is probably bad, but I did go to a couple comedy things. I had a friend who worked in kind of voice things, and we went to a couple comedy things, and I think one of the guys is probably pretty famous, but I cannot remember his name.
God.
But it was funny, and we went, and I think I saw Tim Allen there with a very, very young date, and he was super short. Well, it was creepy too, because he was all macking on this very young woman.
what people can't see is me giving the big thing. He's such an asshole. Like when they did, I think it's Toy Story 3 or Toy Story 4, there's a video you can find on YouTube where somebody young is interviewing him and Tom Hanks. And Tom Hanks is being Tom Hanks. He's just being the nicest guy. And he's talking to this guy and saying, oh, yeah, I know this, and this. And Tim Allen sitting there, his arm crossed, like, what are we doing? What kind of stupid questions are you asking me? I was like, somebody needs to smack you. Like, you're lucky. Yeah. Okay. And now I'm curious who the big comedian, can you describe the big comedian?
I don't really. All I know is he was pretty tall and he was very attractive. He had blue eyes. I don't know.
Oh, wait, blue eyes. No. I was like, maybe.
No, he was, he's probably older now, because I think he was probably like in his 30s then.
Blonde hair?
Blondish. Mm-hmm.
I wonder if it's Titus. Christopher Titus.
I can ask her and get back.
Okay. Well, I was thinking there's a comedian named Gary Goldman who's from but he may have still been in New York, and he's 6'7" and a very handsome dude. And I was like, maybe it's Gary Goldman, because he was around back then. Titus, was he very intense?
Not really, no.
Okay, then that's not Titus. Titus is like very intense.
But yeah, we also, I'm trying to think of other, we would go to interesting, let's see, I karaoke with Mr. Belding at this really famous place at Burbank, like, because he would like to, because I was young then, and he liked to sing with all the girls who were young. He's a perv. But
yeah. I think it's weird in that, like, I think for a while he was okay, and then it hit a point to where he was like, oh, dude, I don't need to know that about you.
Yeah, it's kind of weird. And then one of my favorite places was called the Dresden, which is like a piano. Yeah.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Marty and Elaine, they were fun.
Yeah.
They're little old couple.
Shit. Now I can't. The minute I mention it, and I always screw up the name, I made sure to go to a steakhouse when I was out there, and it's the famous one that has two names, something and something.
This something in Ivy. Is it the
not the Ivy? Shoot, I'm going to Google because it's going to drive me nuts. Steakhouse. I think it's in Hollywood.
It's probably right on Hollywood. I think I know what you're talking about. But yeah, so they have a restaurant attached to the Dresden, but I just like to give this like little old couple that does like, you know, anything on the piano. We like to give them, you know, new songs and see how they find it. It was hilarious.
Musso and Frank.
Oh, Musso and Frank's. Yeah. So that's right near LACMA.
So how I'm dressed, button-up shirt, rolled-up sleeves, shorts. That's how I rolled into Musso and Frank at like 3 in the afternoon. And everybody in there, wait staff, was like 80 years old or older. And it hit me later. It's like, holy shit, these people serve like Cary Grant. I was like, I should say, hey, man, you want to sit down? Nobody else is in here. You want to sit down and have a drink? And like, can I just talk to you? I bet you've seen some amazing shit in here.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're out there. You're going to this stuff. At what point... Like you said, you had a bunch of jobs. Like, were one of those in the museum? What led you to working in the museum industry?
Oh, well, I was just trying to, because my degree was in art, so I was just applying for anything that would get me close to, you know, art. And I was really interested in museum education, which is eventually what I ended up doing out there. And also had gotten a certificate at the same time in like early childhood ed for an art ed concentration. Because I was working with, I started volunteering with the children's museums, and then they hired me after as a contract artist. We would do lessons to all different programs. They have an Art to Go program, so we would go into like Title I schools, or we would do like camp programs, or we would just go to public places like outdoor mall areas, and we would do art programs with kids there. And I got to learn a lot of Spanish because the kids would be translating like for the parents, which was really cool. And my husband, his mom is from Mexico, would sometimes come pick me up. So he would be like, he would be a really good help with the language aspect too. But it was fun.
Do you know who Gabriel Iglesias is? Fluffy, the comedian.
Yeah.
He has a funny joke about taking his girlfriend's son to school and taking him to school, Frankie, and he takes him to a part where he's not supposed to drop him off, but he's late. And he said, have you heard this joke? Out walks the principal, and she's
but
white.
I can imagine.
She's whiter than white. And then he starts just speaking in Spanish like he doesn't speak English to let his son just go in right there. And she was like, no, you can't park here. You have to go around. You can't park here. And he goes, dun, 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 and he just starts rattling off shit in Spanish. And he says, she just stops, and then she just starts speaking, and he does it in white lady voice, perfect Spanish. And he says something, I think the word pendejo is in there. I know what the word pendejo is, like, no pendejo, or you're a pendejo. She says something to him at the end that's the button of the joke. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, that would be, and I've heard it. There's this comedian, Tom Segura, that I think it's his dad. No, his mom is Peruvian, but he looks very white. And he says every once in a while he'll be somewhere and all these Spanish speaking guys will just start talking in front of him, talking shit about him. And then he just drops into perfect Spanish and messes with them. And they're just like, what the hell is happening? What's happening? Why is this white guy talking to us like this?
Good. Yeah. That's funny.
It's hilarious. Okay, so you're doing that. You got into, was that one of the 3 jobs you had, was at the museum?
Well, at first, when I first started there, I was doing like that part-time internship. Then I was filling in for a receptionist whose name was also Stacy, who had the flu or some, like, I don't even remember what kind. It was some kind of like a dispatch place where they maybe fixed heating and air conditioning.
Oh.
And then I was doing that when I got the job at the Getty, but I was also tutoring kids for the SATs and the ACTs because math, and actually did good on both. I had the same score in math and English, and they needed tutors. So I was like, they said, what can you tutor? I said, I'll tutor whatever you want me. So they send me the scores. They said, well, we need math tutors. I said, I'll do it. So I would drive to like Pasadena, where all of the wealthy people's kids are, and I would tutor their kids so that they could do good in the math portion. And then I also was working at this place, I'm trying to remember the name of it, that was on Hollywood Boulevard, not too far from LACMA. It was like a cinema. It was kind of one of the first things, you know how they have the, what's it called? Like Cinemark or whatever, you watch movies.
Yeah.
You eat dinner. This was like one of the first ones.
Oh.
But it wasn't a chain. And so, you know, you'd go there and you'd have like you could have like a full dinner and you would watch like a big movie out there, and then it would turn into a bar after that. And so it was actually, at first I was doing like just basically hanging out with security officers, accosting people to try to get them to come up to the
Oh my God.
And then I started doing like all kinds of some stuff in the office for them, just all kinds of random things.
Okay. Oh my God.
And I did have some stalkers. It was creepy. Like you would meet the craziest people, like, cause you're standing basically on a street corner. Yeah. And so one of the security officers, and that may be even how one of the big bouncers down there ended up being a security officer also at the Getty too, which, so I don't know if that helped me I can't remember if that helped me get the job or if I found out that later, but yeah.
So you're out there working at the Getty, and you said, guest relations. Mm-hmm. So was it very much like, oh, she has a degree in this, let's see if there are other opportunities here. Like the museum education is interesting to me. Like I did not know that was the thing that, but I guess that makes sense. Like that's for the school programs and all that, and kind of community outreach. So did you kind of stay at the Getty, or was like moving to the LACMA an opportunity to step up?
Yeah, so that was an increase. Visitor services is kind of like an entry level type role. And so I then got the opportunity to be an education coordinator. Well, first I was working part-time. So then I had when the King Tut exhibit came to LACMA, so they had a special children's gallery that they made that was all King Tut themed. And so I was working there part-time and still working at the Getty, and then parlayed that into a education coordinator role where I like facilitated all of the school groups that come in, which they had a grant program for Title I schools. And then we would have, tens of thousands of kids come through for school tours, guided ones and self-guided ones. And then I also helped with they had like a summer camp program for kids. So it was a lot of fun.
And was that something that once you got into it, you're like, oh, this is my thing. This is what I want to do?
That was what I was trying to kind of get into when I was over there. So that was kind of what I was aiming for.
So while you're doing that gig, are you like, you're keeping up with doing art? Like, you didn't get burnt out or anything? Like, because you're around it all day. That would be my thought of.
Yeah, well, not really. I was like under the rental art gallery in a place which if you've been to LACMA, with the time they built a new building in between, but it was a department store building that had been converted into a museum. So basically, I didn't really, unless I went into the galleries to observe tours or for something like, a lot of the time I'm in my office. So, and I'm listening to the sounds of people getting trapped in the elevator outside of my office, which would happen every day.
You just hear a faint, hello? Hello? Is anybody there? Okay, so you're doing that, creating your own art. You were still trying for like shows and stuff around town at that point, exhibits?
Yeah, I had a few exhibits. And then I remember I had like a sushi restaurant. I had some art up there for a while, and like, I think it was called Zen Sushi, and had a couple, random shows.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of the same kind of hustling that all the other artists, no matter what industry they're in, are doing. And then,
yeah, it's weird because I've been listening to this podcast forever. It's interesting hearing like how it's changed, how LA has changed. Like 10 years ago, like Marin, I'll use Mark Maron as an example, or Bert Kreischer as an example. Once I was listening to, they were like, oh, comedy wasn't huge there because it was all industry people. And they were kind of saying the same thing about theater there. Like theater there wasn't great because it was all industry people. And that made me think about like the art scene. I was like, man, is the art scene even anything? Because then they would talk about like, oh yeah, around Christmas time, it's absolutely dead in LA. Everybody goes home because nobody's from here. So everybody goes home, and you can drive around and do whatever the hell you want because nobody's there. And so that's interesting. Like, what was the art scene like back then? Was it bustling, or was it kind of like, oh, it's the Getty and LACMA and everything else is just...
Well, I definitely wasn't at the level of the type of people who would be exhibited in it.
Oh.
In either of those places, except for, the art, the art shows that now when I worked at the Getty, I worked at that's the new building, but they had art from the Villa too. So we didn't really have too many modern shows. Mm-hmm. The antiquities was kind of what they were known for. All the antiquities were then moved to the original Villa later, but at the time that wasn't the case. But I will say that most of my coworkers were all artists. We would have an art show every year that was a staff art show because pretty much all of us were artists.
Okay.
So we would have like a nice opening and everything. So, but most of us were not the really good artists, or we wouldn't work at Getty.
But outside of those were like their independent studios and stuff.
And that's where we'd have shows, and then they would have First Friday openings and things like that. And that's the same sort of thing that I was doing in Pittsburgh.
There's one place I struggle with because the guy who owns it's a complete asshole. And in fact, he just got in trouble this year. But it's called Gallery 88, I think. Mm-hmm. And it's all like, do you know what Mondo is out of Austin? Mondo would do like unique posters of like Star Wars, but it wouldn't look like Star Wars, like Ollie Moss and all that stuff. And I feel like Gallery 88 or Gallery 1988 was like that, to where it was all this kind of like pulp culture themed art. And, but the owner, I listened to him on a few podcasts. I was like, man, you are an asshole. And then he just got in trouble with, what was it? It was like Cinnamon Toast Crunch. Did you see the thing on Twitter where it was shrimp in a Cinnamon Toast Crunch?
No,
and
but
it turns
that sounds
out
disgusting.
And it turns out that maybe he had made it up. And he got it was just very weird. And then he lashed out at people like, no, this is real. And it's like, well, we've got all these years of you being an asshole. So why wouldn't we think this is fake? But it was a really cool spot to where like Kevin Smith or celebrities, people like that would have these exhibits that were really cool. And there's a bar out there now. I'm not a Star Wars fan, but there is a bar that looks like the cantina from Star Wars.
Huh, that's cool.
That I think is on Hollywood Boulevard. I'm like, damn it. I was like, that would be really cool. And I've seen video and stuff of the inside. It looks really cool. Okay, so you're doing that. You're doing art exhibits. You meet your husband in the art world.
Yep.
So was it a hard decision to move here? Like you said, you had family here and all that, but had you felt like you had done your time in LA, or not? I hate to put it that way, but
yeah, I mean, I don't think that when I moved there, I don't know how much forethought there was, but when you're fresh out of college and you want to do something fun and exciting. You want to get some experience in your field. And so I don't know if I ever had the intention of staying there forever. I feel like at the point when we moved, we were both ready for, I guess, a fresh start. He'd been divorced, and I think we were just both, and we were looking for, some place where we could have a family that wasn't going to be super expensive. And I actually have friends who, I have a very good friend who has kids, and have friends who have kids in LA, but I just couldn't imagine raising a family there based on the way that I was brought up. I want my kids to have a yard, and I don't want to have to worry about the people upstairs from me not wanting to move their car because we have tandem parking, and I don't really know what she's doing in her room at all hours.
Oh my God.
I can't even imagine.
I keep hearing more and more stories about the expense to living out there. There's one comedian that he was talking about buying a house. Shit. I'm trying to think, like 15 years ago, and it being like a $500,000, $600,000 house, and it's not that big. Mm-hmm. He's like, well, hell, now it's worth like $1.7 million.
Well, yeah. And that's the other thing, especially because my husband, gave up the house that he had lived with his ex. And it was like it was a small house, like a 3-1 or a 3-2, I think. But, standards are like same, probably 1,300 square feet, kind of like ours. But at the time, I think they bought it was in the 90s, and it was for maybe 200,000 now. And then by the time we left, I think it was already valued at like 500,000. And I think that it sold not too long ago for $750,000. And it's actually was surrounded by an area that the neighborhood itself was good, but it's surrounded by an area that is not considered to be a good neighborhood. I think they called it like the jungle or something because of so that just tells you how priced out of the market anyone really is, unless they are a celebrity.
That's insane. Yeah. Cause one of the comedians was talking about, he was like, cause him and his wife and their 2 daughters are moving. He was like, I'm thinking about keeping this old house, the one that's worth 1.7 million. He's like, and I'm thinking about renting it to up and coming comedians for not a crazy amount, so that they can have a yard, a pool, something where they're not living in an apartment, and just, something to like, then they can, then if it's a husband and wife, then they can start having a family there. Cause him and his wife started having their 2 daughters there. And, well,
that's nice of him.
Yeah. Yeah. He also makes enough money to where he's like, oh, I think he paid off that house within a few years. Like he worked really hard and paid off that house to where they were moving to another house. And it's so funny because his 2 daughters are like 17 and 14. And at one point he was like, we're moving to this bigger, nicer house, and it's about to be just the 2 of us. What the hell are we doing? This house is going to be big enough for us in 4 years. Like, what the hell are we doing? He's like, we've already started down this path. I guess we're just going to stick with it. It's like, that's pretty good. That's pretty good.
Funny.
So you move back here because your husband has the insurance company thing. So when you knew you were moving here, did you start looking at some of the museums or places around here for if there were openings?
Well, I actually was more concerned about getting a job. So I started calling places to see where I could get work. I was trying to work in the industry. So I remember talking to I don't know what her exact title was, and she's not there anymore, but it was the director of operations or something like that at the KMA, because as you know, we don't have too many museums here in Knoxville.
Right.
So I remember her saying that they only had some kind of a part-time opening or something. And so, so I remember I was trying to find like a museum gig.
I'm trying to think. I guess there's only the 2. I think KMA and the McClung.
We're the only 2 AAM certified museums. Now there are a lot of house museums, as you know, and then there's the East Tennessee History Center Museum, which is part of, the library system. Yeah, most of those places have small staff. Not that the other two don't either.
Well, I was thinking,
small.
I don't know why in my brain I was thinking art museum, not museum.
Yeah, well, I was looking for art museums because that is what my background was in, of course, originally. So then I started looking for education gigs, and that's when I was working as a sub.
You didn't you didn't look at Cooter's Museum in Pigeon Forge?
Never heard of it.
Cooter was on Dukes of Hazzard.
I didn't know they had a museum.
He had a museum in Gatlinburg, and I think it recently moved to Pigeon Forge. Cooter's.
Well, it's less of a commute. So.
Oh my God. So here's a weird fact for you. When I was growing up, Pigeon Forge was dead until you got to the track. Like there used to be this museum that it had Buford Pusser's car in there. Do you know who Buford Pusser is?
No.
Have you ever heard of the films Walking Tall? There was a series in the 70s, and then The Rock did one in like the 2000s.
Oh,
but you're good. If you're going to watch the one from the 70s, it's about a guy who became sheriff in some tiny county in Tennessee, and it was so rough that he carried around a 2x4 or a 4x4 and would hit people in the head with it. Like,
I don't think I've been to that part of Tennessee. I feel like that would be better served in LA, to be honest.
So he cleaned up the town, and they made a film of it with Joe Don Baker, and then they made some crappy sequels about him. But his name was Buford Pusser. But yeah, they had Buford Pusser's sheriff's car or something. Like that's the level of museum when I was growing up of what Pigeon Forge was like. As much as you think it's redneck or trashy now, it was even worse so then.
Well, that actually reminds. Well, that's just the tourist areas. That's like Virginia Beach or any of those places. That reminds me of. But it actually, what you were talking about before, reminded me of the one kind of Tennessee, California connection that I did have with Tennessee before that I really love. Is, have you heard of Huell Hauser? Tennessee's Gold or California's Gold. I love that guy.
Wait.
California's Gold.
Can I try to do an imitation? Because I'm trying to remember who it is that there's some comedian that on their podcast makes fun. That's amazing. That's how. Did I get that pretty right?
Yeah, that was pretty good.
Okay.
I love that guy, and something about it reminds me of the McClung Museum. I think because he likes like all this historical, like interesting things, and he would always do a lot of things that were like natural history related or like natural wonders or whatever. But I don't know if that was an act. But he seems like so sweet. You just want to.
Was he from Tennessee?
He's from Tennessee.
Oh, I did not know that.
He's from Tennessee, and he moved to California, and he got this show where he would just, and I don't even know if it was like big when he started because it was a PBS broadcast, which, that's more of my line of stuff. And he was just doing this show, and I gained a following. I don't know if it's like a cult following or whatever, but I think because of his natural exuberance and like childlike wonder about everything he would see. It's refreshing.
That's great. That's amazing. Yeah. I can't even remember, but that's how they would mock him, I guess, or imitate him. Like, that's amazing.
Yeah, that's what he would do.
I've heard it so much. that I was like, oh my God, Huell Hauser. Yeah.
Have you watched it? Have you watched it before?
Yeah.
Okay.
I've watched some on YouTube, and I can't make it too far. It's too earnest. He's too happy. I'm like, God,
I don't know. He reminds me of like the Tennessee, like Mr. Rogers or something. I kind of love it because it just makes me happy.
Oh my God.
Sunshines and rainbows and unicorns.
Oh my God. I did not know he was from Tennessee. Today
you're
going
to have to look him up now and see.
Yeah,
but I don't remember what part of Tennessee he's from. I'm going to look it up right now. He's in California Gold, because I know that was part of like the funny part. Gallatin. He was born in Gallatin.
I know where Gallatin, Tennessee is. Oh my God. Okay. I figured the way they were talking, it sounded like he was on like public access.
Well, he went to UT too, was the other reason.
And he produced his own.
Went to the University of Tennessee.
Okay. But it sounded like he was producing his own show. Like it wasn't something produced. Maybe I'm wrong.
It was on PBS. I don't know if it was on PBS when it started, but it was like a PBS show.
Okay. Huell Hauser. That's amazing. Okay. I keep saying that's amazing, and I don't even mean to.
Like, you mean that's amazing?
That's amazing. Okay, now I got to see. Oh, yep, there he is. I clicked on Gallatin, Tennessee's wiki page, and there he is. Huell Hauser, National Public Television.
Representing University of Tennessee.
Oh, shit. Gallatin, Tennessee. Sandra Locke was from there. Do you know who Sandra Locke is? Mm-hmm. That's crazy. I didn't realize she was from Gallatin. I didn't realize she was from Tennessee. I thought she was a Californian. Okay.
Well, so as we said before, everybody moves there from somewhere else.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what cracks me up about people in New York. My friend that I don't think even if he listens to this, I'd still give him shit about this. He grew up in New Jersey. But then he moved.
So did I.
But then he moved to New York, and he was like, "I'm a New Yorker." I was like, "No, dude, you were born in." He's like, "You shut the hell up. I'm a New Yorker." I was like, "No, you're not." I like just poking him. It's like you shouldn't.
He doesn't like Jersey. What's wrong with the Jersey?
I want to go. You shouldn't have shit on Louis, dude. You shouldn't have. I would have said you were from New York if you had appreciated Louis how I said you should appreciate.
So where does your friend live?
He lives here now.
Okay.
When he was in New York, he met a woman who was from North Carolina, lived here for a long time, also named Jody. And then they moved down here and got married. There was a point, and I have never met that many Jodys in my life. And there was a point where there were 3 of us within a quarter of a mile, and we all knew one another, which I thought was hilarious.
Funny.
There was Big Jody, which was me. She was Little Jody. And then, and I'm friends with him, so I can say this. And then we had Gay Jody. Gay Jody was, I think they're married now with our friend Howie. And he actually said that the first time he was like, Big Jody, Little Jody. And he was like, and I'm Gay Jody. I was like, I don't think I can call you. He was like, nah.
So he's not gay, but you call
No, he is. No, he is. No, he is. But he was like, no, you can call me that. I was like, okay. I think you have to be there when I call you that because I feel uncomfortable calling. He's like, don't. It's fine. I approve. It's like, okay. Him and Howie are the best. What's funny is now Howie is in Rugby, Tennessee, which is his own little historic area. And Jody and Russell moved to the guy from New York and my friend Jody. They moved to Deep West Knoxville and now own an Airbnb in Rugby. I'm like, hey, you left Big Jody behind, man. Y'all all moved to Rugby. What the hell? I'm not moving to Rugby. Hell no.
Now I have to look up Rugby because I don't even know where that is.
It's great. And my friends, Teresa and Wayne live out there too. It's great. It's a ways away. They keep saying, you need to come out here and visit. And I'm like, it's like an hour and 20 minutes away through like back highways.
An hour and 20 minutes. That was only half of my LA commute. Come on.
I know. But you're not in LA anymore, damn it. So here's a conversation I had earlier today with my buddy. He's been vaccinated and been past the 2 weeks. I've been vaccinated. This Saturday will be past the 2 weeks. And he and I have marketing meetings, air quotes, where we would just get together and bullshit for like 6 hours. Like the first one we ever did, we went to, maybe it wasn't the first one. One of the ones we did, we went to Rankin's, ate, then went to Wild Love and sat there and drank coffee to the point to where we couldn't speak anymore. Like that's how long, like from like 6 a.m. until it was like 3:30 in the afternoon. His wife was texting him like, where the hell are you? Like, why are you not home? And he was like, oh, sorry. Like, and so he and I will go on adventures. I'll find places for us to go. Like we ended up in Clinton. We went to Master's Donuts in Clinton, and then we found a coffee shop downtown that is a coffee shop tattoo parlor, and it is awesome. And but now,
oops, I'm getting a little.
Oh, a little error, little buffering thing. Oh. Oh.
Sometimes if I turn my video, I don't know.
Oh, okay. It's okay. But he and I were talking today, and somebody had shared this donut shop because I'm a big donut fiend. And was it Morristown or somewhere? This giant donut opening onto the door. is like, I must go there. And then I looked it up and they're closed. I was like, son of a.
Aw.
So I texted him. I was like, dude, now you're vaccinated. I'm vaccinated. Let's do another marketing meeting. He's like, I'm in. So we were talking today and I was like, I think that donut shop is closed. I've been thinking of backups. I was like, how adventurous are you? And he was like, uh-oh. And I was like, there's a place in Cookeville, Tennessee called Ralph's Donuts, but it's an hour and a half away. Are you up for going there? And he was like, yeah, why not? I was like, God, that's why I love you, brother.
Do you want to rate all the donut shops like around? You should do a.
I can. I cannot do that publicly because it would probably anger some people that some of the places that I would shit on, that I may know people who own it. Best donuts in town. I'm going to give them a shout out here. Status Dough on Bearden Hill. Best damn donuts in town. Karen and Jimmy are awesome. Best damn donuts in town. But like Masters Donuts out in Clinton. There's a place out in Halls that is just old school donuts. And I was like, those are also amazing. Like those are also fantastic. When he and I went to that place, Masters in Clinton, God, I keep talking about them. I always buy a dozen. I was like, I'll take the rest home. If we had sat there and talked, I would have ate the entire dozen. Like they just,
they're that good.
Well, they were so small and fluffy. Like I was like, man, I'm just going to inhale these. It's like buying a dozen Krispy Kremes. Like
yeah, because they're so light. You're like, oh, how much?
They don't have they're too light to have calories. The calories don't count. Okay, so you're back here. You're looking at KMA, and what was it at? Did you were teaching? But did something bigger open at McClung, or did you go back?
I didn't have so I didn't have like a formal teaching degree. So
okay.
To be a museum educator, you don't actually need that, which is kind of funny.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant you were teaching like bilingual stuff, like school. I was basically just substitute teaching at the point. So I was still looking for something full-time. So I got a substitute teaching role, and then I was just looking for something permanent. So I just did that until I started, and then I was volunteering at the KMA doing docenting there, which is, I don't know, some people don't know what that is, but that's basically where you lead the tours. So we have docents too, but basically docenting, it's where you lead gallery tours, and usually that's maybe a volunteer role. So that was one of the things I did in LACMA's, work with our docent group. And so then when I was doing the substitute teaching, I had started applying for positions at UT because that's kind of like the big employer for education related, and was just doing I had experience working with volunteers and volunteer boards and things. And so ended up getting a job in the advancement office, which is where you work with all the alumni and fundraising. And so I was doing more like administrative stuff in the advancement office because I had experience working with volunteers. And so kind of progressed to a bunch of jobs and was working for the biggest stint before the museum with the Alliance of Women Philanthropists. And so that was our female donors to all the campuses. So I would get to go to the different campuses, and we would bring in volunteers for different experiences at all the campuses. So I got to see like the rodeo at Martin, and got to go to the Health Science Center campus. So I've been to all the UT campuses, which was a really fun, cool experience. And we actually brought in a Tennessee person, and I'm going to forget her name and I feel bad, an actress. Dale Dickey?
No, not Dale. We did bring in Dale, but not with my position. Dale is an awesome actress. This was not not a Dale. So she was in the remake of The Parent Trap with the girlfriend, she's from Oak Ridge.
Yeah. Yeah.
She is a huge flake, I gotta say. And
do I need to mark this time to maybe cut that? No, I'm just kidding.
I don't know, but she maybe you might need to cut out the fact that UT still probably she never submitted her travel expenses to me. Like I kept asking. I'm like, we're about to close the fiscal year. It's been months since you were here. I need your info. And she never sent it. Like she was trying to get us to pay for like a chartered plane at one point. I mean, she was.
I looked it up because it was who I thought it was. I just won't mention her name, but I know exactly who you're talking about.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, she walked in an hour after she was supposed to do her presentation, and we basically had to have somebody else like go in hers. It was just a hot mess.
Oh my God. Okay. Okay. Yeah, we just.
And I was like 8 months pregnant, so I didn't have a lot of humor at the time.
How about this? It wasn't Megan Fox. That's what we'll say. Because Megan Fox is from Oak Ridge.
It was a blonde. Let's put it that way.
No. I'm trying to. Yeah, it wasn't Megan Fox, and it wasn't Christina Hendricks, because they're both from here. So
okay.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to. Okay, so the job opportunity comes up. Was it the same role you're in now? So I worked in that role for like 7 years, and so quite some time. And then my another person that I met when Jeff Chapman was director at the McClung, they opened a new position, which is completely new. So Jeff Chapman basically did all the fundraising for the museum since he was director, and started the membership program in 1990 as a way to kind of get community support. And I think after doing it for like almost 30 years, he was like, man, this is exhausting and could be a full-time job. Oh my God.
All this external community, events and things that you have to be at. And so he worked with the university to make a job for that. And the person who was in it for the first year wasn't me. It was but I got to know her because she was from the West Coast and had worked at an art museum out there. So we kind of became friends, and we're having lunch, and her husband is from Sweden, and he got a job in Sweden, and they decided to move to Sweden. So then I was able to transfer into this role.
Huh.
It's kind of a weird happenstance. And yeah, so now I've been here for about 7 years.
Okay. I'm trying to think how to say this. Has it changed a lot since when you started? Like, have you been able to change or grow that position?
My job?
Yeah, from what it was, was when you started.
I mean, yes, because now there have been a lot of people who've left and retired. And so I'm one of the people who've been there longer. So there's a lot of, anytime you've been in a place for plus I had already been at the university for a while. So I have a lot of connections in other departments and things. So you become like the person that people ask for things a lot of times, or ask questions of. And we have a fairly new staff in some ways. We have a lot of people. We probably have more people that were hired, or at least as many people who were hired after me as were before. So I'm kind of like in that mid, range. But a lot of the people who were hired before me haven't been at the university as long as me. So I'm probably one of the longest,
okay,
people at the museum now.
Okay. What do you think has changed in your time there? The biggest change in your time there?
Well, we've gotten more involved in the university. This is going to sound weird, but we've gotten more involved in the university itself, because I think there was this, we were kind of the ignored little place over there, I think, in the corner. And so part of this former strategic plan that was done in 2012 was to kind of have the position that I have now, was to create that position to help grow community support, and then also to have another position to increase the connection to the university campus through direct university instruction. So that has kind of helped us to connect with people at the university, because one of the things about kind of growing support from your alums is at a museum, you don't have alumni. And we didn't have as much engagement with students while they're on campus in a direct formal way. And so that's allowed us to be able to do that. And then we can, over time, it'll be really good because we'll have people who have these fond memories of being at the museum in a more formal way, whereas that wasn't really done before. If that makes sense. It was more externally focused on K through 12 education, which is still really important and a personal passion of mine, because that was one of the first things that Jeff also created. His first hire was a person to do K through 12 outreach, because we bring in kids for school tours. And we still do that, although COVID has put it, kibosh on that. But just before that, I was working with our educator on putting together some sponsorship packets to get kits for kids. So we've been doing like tactile learning for kids, and we have like little package of bags that we put together with lessons, like a full lesson and all of the materials that you need. And so that goes to schools, or it could go to home learners and all of that sort of thing, because at least for the past year, of course, kids were not coming into museums for tours. And we weren't allowed to have people in. And then right now we still have a lot of restrictions, even more than a standalone museum, because we're on a university campus. So.
I'm curious if this is touchy. Do you all work with the arts department there a lot, or is it kind of separate entities? Like, because I know there's a big artist, I'm sure you know Wayne White, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know Wayne White? Like, I know he's like a professor emeritus or something in the art department at the university. Mm-hmm. So has there been, in trying to grow like that alumni base, has there been any thought of doing like, hey, we're going to do a Wayne White exhibit, or people like that? Or Julie or Kevin, you know, with Yeehaw Letterpress, you know, that's what I think about, is maybe local people.
Yeah, we don't do too much in the way of like a full show of a current professor, but we include professors a lot of times in shows. And in fact, Beauvais Lyons is going to be having some of his prints on display in the fall.
I know Beauvais. He cracks me up. He 99 times out of 100 does not remember that he met me.
Oh my God, that is so funny. I had a meeting with him, so maybe I shouldn't say this. I don't know, but I had a meeting with him recently, and he was like, "It's so great to meet you." I'm like,
I think he's also stoned.
5 times. It makes me feel better. It makes me feel a little bit better.
So I'll tell you a funny.
So
do you know Pachakacha? Do you know what Pachakacha is?
Yes. Uh-huh.
So he did a Pachakacha speech, and he got up there and he was like, "You know, I had this whole thing planned out, but instead of that, I'm going to talk about titties." And I'm not kidding. He talked about boobs for his entire Pachakacha. I was like, "That's so." Did
he have pictures?
Yes. So what's funny is his wife, another one who does not remember me, Diane Fox, God love her.
I know who she is too.
Partner, wife, whatever.
I think they're married, but
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We're in hour 2. This is the part where I'm like, I don't care about being correct. Anyway, Diane Fox was so I didn't go to UT. I went to Pellissippi, because Pellissippi, this is going to be a stupid thing to say in 2021. Pellissippi worked more on learning the computers in 1996 when I started in college, whereas UT was like, no computers for first 2 years. Still does that in the design program. You do not touch a computer till your junior year, and you have to pass and be approved to continue in the design program before you can open a computer. So I went to Pellissippi instead, and Diane was one of my professors. And she does not remember, I think, that she was. And here's the funny thing about it. There was one semester where I was taking 5 classes a day, and 3 of those 5 classes were Diane. And she still does not remember me. I'm like, how the hell? Okay, Diane, I see you. Maybe it's just I have a weird memory and I remember people, but it cracks me up.
Well, no, I mean, I sometimes forget people's names, but I usually still remember what they look like.
Yeah. So museums, kids getting people in. So when COVID hit, you still have hair. So I'm assuming you didn't pull out all your hair when COVID first started happening.
I have a lot of hair, so it's hard to tell.
Yeah, I can't see the back. So what was that like? Like, did you all like have a come together meeting and go like, what the hell are we going to do? Like,
well, for us, to be honest, it was even worse in a way because we were in a leadership transition period. We had recently had our assistant director retire, and then just after that, our director retired, both of which had been in their roles for about 30 years. So just think of all that institutional knowledge leaving at once. Luckily, they're still accessible, and I actually, consider them friends and can call them if I want to. But at the same time, that's like a very difficult time to bring in people who are supposed to be out meeting people, but have to do it via Zoom.
Yeah. Does Google, I know there for a while, Google was doing a thing where they were going in and doing virtual tours. This is like years ago. They started this in a lot of museums. Is the McClung on there?
Well, we did a couple virtual tours. Very ironically, we had a very expensive exhibit that had been brought in from all these other huge institutions on medieval art of the apocalyptic medieval art, which, we should have known was a bad idea when we planned it. I mean, and there were all these crazy things that kept happening. In fact, the 2 co-curators, one of them is a professor in the architecture department, Gregor Callis, and I hope you can hear me because it looks like you're frozen. Yeah. And then also the other professor, Jay Rubenstein.
Yeah.
Position in California at the time that we were planning this show, and then moved to California, and the other professor had to take over the rest of the curation. And we kept having we were supposed to have somebody from I think it was from WBIR come out and do a video and a story on the show, and twice it got canceled. Once because the reporter had the flu, and then another time because of flooding.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Okay. Good Lord. Yeah. Third time was not the charm. You're like, you know what?
We eventually brought him back in, but I couldn't go then. So somebody else had to help him with the professor. I was like, whatever, y'all handle it. I tried.
So the pandemic happens, and you all, like, what was that discussion like? What was the plans? How have you all kind of continued? Like, because it seemed like there for a while, it was like, we'll be open in 3 weeks. Wait, we'll be open in 6 weeks. And it just that line kept getting pushed. So what was that like for you all?
Well, for me, it's been pretty awful because, because personally, my whole job is predicated on being able to reach out to people and bring them into the museum. But we did a lot of pivoting, obviously, like our board continued to meet. We did a lot of Zoom meetings. And we wanted to take like a caring approach to reaching out to our members and stuff. And we didn't, and the university as a whole didn't, reach out right away in those first few months. We were actually in the middle of our appeal that we do for the spring. We held it for a few months, which, definitely affected us because some of those gifts didn't come until the next fiscal year. So we ended up closing out with some holes in our...
I helped Big Brothers Big Sisters a lot, and they had to cancel their 2 big events, and they're like, oh yeah, those 2 events were 2 of our biggest fundraisers for the year. Yeah, what the hell are we, kind of.
And we were supposed to have a big show coming from Los Angeles the fall after. So it was on Mexican art called Mexican Modernity. And it was like a private family in LA, a really big show that had traveled all over. So this was, March. I was already working on it. This time we didn't know what was going to happen, how long this was going to go on. And so we had, I had already secured some sponsorships, and we had a lot of people in the community that were really interested in this. And so the show actually got pulled by the lender, not just from our institution, but for a whole year from other institutions because of this. And so, we had we were lucky to have some folks who were willing to move their sponsorships to another program, but that would mean, delaying some of our monies that we were, and then others, that were very tied into the Latinx community. And so, or the Mexican community locally. And so really wanted to support that because of, their link to the artwork and the artists themselves. So it wasn't really a good fit for them to move it on to something else. So that was kind of like our 6-month dark period, quote unquote, because we did still have university classes coming in. And so we weren't really able to work something out until over the last few months when we've been having like limited entry. And now when the kids, when I say kids graduate, we'll be able to let more folks in.
And have you all got any pushback from the donors, or is it worked pretty efficiently? Have people been kind of understanding through this?
Yeah, most people have been understanding. I think at first people were kind of there was more pushback at first because nobody realized how serious this was. But after that, we've had people that have been more careful to the point that some people still are not totally comfortable. But our precautions are, I think we're taking like very, very careful precautions because we are letting people in on timed entry and they have to fill out a health screening form. And so.
Okay. See, again, I'll wait till June till the kids are out of class and I'll come and I'll check it out. Yeah. Again, it's parking. I swear to God, that's the only reason. That should be whoever is in charge of parking at UT, I should have them on to just talk about, yes, you can park at UT. Here's how you do it.
I can send you the director's cell phone number after that. I made sure to get his number on my cell phone.
That'll be a bonus at the end of this episode. It's just, you're like, oh God, you're a Knoxvillian. Of course you don't like, I was like, no, I don't like parking there because it makes me angry.
You can take the public transportation. We're off over there.
Oh my God. That I also do not do well in the heat. I wear shorts in the wintertime. So walking the 3/4 of a mile to a bus stop I don't even know if that's the right bus stop to get to, is like, no, I'll just drive. I'll drive my little car over there. Okay. So you're doing that and you're playing events. So this, the Members Day thing that you had mentioned, is that going to be how is that going to work there? Is it?
Well, we're probably going to keep things kind of small. So we were doing a lot of virtual events, of course. So our new executive director is actually from Santiago, Chile. And he was not just previously, but in a previous position was the director of the museum on Easter Island. And there's only, one museum, and Easter Island's like the only place that's doing good with the COVID because they have only one plane that goes in and out and they basically closed off to the world. And so he had a lot of connections there still. And we hosted a webinar series with two of the people were actually, so one of them was the current director of the museum out there. And then we had somebody from UCLA. So we had somebody in Hawaii. We had people all over the world do this webinar series about Easter Island, which was really. So we've been doing, things like that. And then we have a special exhibit that opened on women artists from our collection that are 75% of which had never been displayed before.
Okay.
And you should come see that one if you.
We talked about early on about what I like. So what are ones that you like? What are some artists that you like, or what that I'm going to ask 3 questions at once. What are some things you like? Who are some artists you like? Who do you think is someone that's slept on that people don't know a lot about? And who is somebody in the McClung in that women's exhibit that you think everyone needs to see? Sorry for 3 questions at once.
Okay. Well, let's see. I might answer the first 2 in kind of the same one. So one of the, I guess some of the big ones that you probably know of that I like is when I was at LACMA, we had a Gustav Klimt exhibit where they were actually also some of the artwork had been, returned back to some of the Jewish families that it had been stolen. And so that was really cool because then we had some people who were like families that were reunited with the artwork and that sort of thing. And I always just loved his work because, like I said, I'm a portrait and figurative. And then another one that I studied a lot when I was in school that I still like because I have I love fairy tales and I like to do paintings that have to do with fairy tales or kind of like in reinterpreted fairy tales. And then I also loved the, the politically correctness of the fairy tales or like reclaiming them, that sort of thing. So Paulo Rego is a Portuguese American artist who did a lot of things about fairy tales, like series and also feminism. And she was known for some of her paintings that were very, like strong female figures that almost looked like males in the way that their bodies were painted. And then she also had like a dog woman series where she had women that were kind of like posed in like dog poses or anyway, look her up. So that's like, I don't think she's that well known, but
will you say her name one more time?
Paula Rego, Rego, and she's a Portuguese American artist.
Okay.
And in our show, one of the ones that I would say that you probably, one of the ones I say because I'm also thinking about our next show that you want to check out is Elizabeth Gould, who's a natural history artist, and she probably was known because she was married to John Gould, the very famous but she was the one who actually did a lot of the artwork for him, but never received any credit for it because that was kind of the way of the time. And she would actually do the painting or she would do the illustration, and most of them were not signed by her. But the research that the curator, Aaron Wolitz, did, who was a student at the time, uncovered the fact that she was actually the artist behind a lot of these works.
Wow. Okay.
And also, there's also Elizabeth Norse, who was another female artist who moved to Paris, and never got married. Her sister actually supported her, and there's some speculation that she may or may not have been a lesbian, and that was part of why she maybe moved to France. And it's because it was a little more, accepted there. But it also could have been the fact that she just didn't want to be tied down, and that was kind of the place to be for, artists at the time. But there is a whole section at the end of the exhibit which was also curated by a former student, Emma Grace Thompson, that talks about one of them, what is art, and there are a lot of things that are anonymous because they were done by women and it wasn't valued as art. And that's kind of the same way with East Tennessee, some of the craft, the idea behind what is craft, what is art. Okay. And the section on kind of like queerness and how that relates to art. So
okay,
female art.
Interesting. To not leave a dangling thread in caustic. That was like an hour and a half ago.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So Peggy the aforementioned Peggy Hambry and Julie Belcher. Do you know who Julie Belcher is?
I'm not sure if I do.
So Julie Belcher and Kevin Bradley started Yeehaw Letterpress on J Street.
I love that. Yes.
So then they split, and Kevin went to LA. He went to California, and Julie stayed and started Pioneer House, and she was doing encaustic paintings, her and Peggy together up on the second floor. So I got to go up there and see. That's the first time I think I'd ever heard the term. Like, I've been involved in art since 7th grade. When I was in high school, our art program at Fulton High School, Miss Waller, her and her husband used to teach at UT in the art department. And we went on a tour. This is probably the last time I went to McClung. And we walk out to this area, and there's like 3 hills that just look like this. And she was like, "This is an art piece my husband and I did." And I was like, the grass? And she was like, "No, the hills. We built these hills, and this is our art piece." I was like, "What the hell are you talking about, Miss Wall? That's grass." And she was cracking me. Like, she was like, "No, her and her husband built those 3 little hills." But it was one of those things, like, instead of there being a slope there, it was just like, it wasn't like 1, 2, 3. It was like going up. And I was like, interesting. I think it's gone. I think it's long been gone. I think they've been doing construction and stuff, but it cracked me up of just like, what the hell? She's the only reason I know who.
What the hell? Did you say what the hell?
What the hell? She's the only reason I know who Piet Modrian is, because she would talk about Piet Modrian. That's how she talked. I can't hear my Southern accent, but I can make that Southern accent come out really strong if I want to. What the hell are you talking about, woman? Like, I was like, "You also smoked a lot of weed." Like Miss Waller, she was kind of deaf. So when we would talk to her, she would just be like, "Huh?" It's like, "Never mind, Miss Waller. We're fine." She would notoriously, you go around and read, Jody here, the roll call. She would mark people absent who were there because she could not hear them. Like, and she couldn't see it. She was the best. But by the time I graduated, she was like, "You're in like Art 6 now." I was like, "Oh, okay, Miss Waller." Because they split to block schedule my last year. She was like, "Yeah, you can be in my class, but you're in like Art 6. Like, we would do screen printing.
That's cool.
Figurative drawing, like all kinds of stuff. I'm still not good at any, and I wasn't good at it back then, but I think she just liked that I tried and I stuck with it. But yeah, it was wild. Trying to think of anything else on the list. Museums and fundraising, especially during COVID, like fundraising.
So I'll let you know about our members' days real quick.
Okay.
So what we're trying to do, so one of the things, we actually had a few partnerships that we're trying to, especially with the digital outreach, just make things more accessible for people. So we just recently added digital membership cards, and we're part of the Southeastern Reciprocal Museum program. So that means that if you're a member at our museum, you get a reciprocal membership at over 200 museums in the Southeast. And so reciprocal benefits. So even if it's a free museum, sometimes you get discounts on events or on shop purchases.
That's awesome.
We now have through Museum, we partner with, it's called Museum with the C, also with the UT Alumni Association, to be able to offer digital membership cards. And you can just like download them on your, I was going to pull it up. You can download them on your Apple wallet or whatever, and then it'll show you the benefits. And you get, if you're not a UT alum, you would get the UT alum benefits on travel and stuff like that. And then you also get the reciprocal membership benefits at some of these other museums. You could just show your little digital card and it's on your phone, which is cool.
Yeah.
And so we have that. And then we're having some days to promote this, but also to kind of reintroduce people back to the museum on more days. We're going to be open starting in June, Wednesdays through Saturdays, and we just added Thursdays this month. And we are having basically days for people to come in. You still have to sign up for a slot so we can monitor how many people are in. June 24th through, June 24th, if that's the Wednesday, through June, actually, that must be the 23rd, June 23rd through June 26th. And on the Thursday evening, we're going to have a film screening of an art film called The Destruction of Memory.
Okay.
We'll also have a conversation after that. And we can only allow 60 people in. That's the maximum we're allowed to allow in for that.
Okay.
but it's free for museum members, and it's going to be $10 if you're not a member. Or you
Okay.
can join and become a member and go for free.
So how much is it to be a member right now?
For just an individual, it's $30. And if you're a couple or a family, it's $50. And it's a philanthropic donation. So
Okay.
the
We'll end on this. We're going to dismount on this. If there's one, although good Lord, you might be mad at me for not preparing you for this one. Like, if there's one bit of advice that you could give a young artist right now, or somebody who wanted to get into this in the museum industry, what would that advice be?
I would probably say be open-minded. We actually gave this advice for a women's thing recently, just because I probably would never have thought to, I wouldn't have thought of the other types of jobs that there are in museums. I think people have a very limited view of what goes on behind the scenes in a museum. And so, they think of education, they think of the curation, they think of building things, but there's a whole business aspect to the museum. And it's the same for if you have your own art practice. So I would say be open and embrace wherever that path might lead you.
It's a perfect way to go out. Thank you for being on.
Thanks. It's been fun.